Welcome to the deep dive. I'm really eager today to get into a topic that's, well, it's more than just headlines. It's actively shaping our world right now. USA versus China, competing for the future of the world.
Right.
We're talking about the two most powerful countries on the planet, and their rivalry is influencing pretty much everything, from the apps on your phone, maybe,
Yeah.
to global trade, even basic ideas about how the world should work.
That's right. And our mission here in this deep dive is really to take your source material, all those articles, the researcher notes, and pull out the key insights. We want to help you cut through all the noise and really understand how these two giants are shaping what's next, in trade, technology, military power, even those fundamental ideas about global order.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Because I think to really get a handle on where we are today, we absolutely have to start with China's incredible rise. It's just staggering. It sets the stage for everything else.
Yeah, if you think back just a few decades, say the 1970s, China looked completely different. I mean, unrecognizable compared to today. Imagine a country that was mostly rural, grappling with really widespread poverty, very little industry, almost no international trade or advanced tech, especially compared to the U.S. and the West back then.
Exactly. And that stark difference makes the speed of its transformation, well, all the more remarkable. The key figure you have to look at is Deng Xiaoping. He came to power in the late 70s. And his massive decision, really pivotal, was to open China's economy up to the world for the first time, really. He saw that engaging globally was the only way out of that poverty. So under Deng, and you had these bold reforms, China started allowing foreign companies to invest. They set up these special economics zones, basically areas with fewer rules, like experiments. And crucially, they encouraged Chinese people to start their own businesses, try new things. It wasn't just policy, it was like a whole new mindset for the nation.
And the results were just, well, explosive. From the 80s onwards, China's economy grew faster than almost anywhere else in history. Hundreds of millions of people were lifted out of poverty. They found jobs in new factories, new industries popping up everywhere. Cities like Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing. They transformed into these huge hubs for trade, finance, and technology. Almost overnight, it felt like. China quickly became known as the factory of the world, making everything from clothes and toys to really complex electronics and machinery.
Right, but it wasn't just factories. They were building the foundation for something much bigger. The government invested massively in infrastructure. We're talking modern roads, high-speed rail, huge airports, ports, often better than what you see in developed nations. And they completely overhauled education, focusing on training millions of engineers, scientists, skilled workers. They knew science and tech were key for the future. They also poured money into new industries, renewable energy, electric cars, AI. Plus, and this is often missed, they built global connections. Think about the Belt and Road Initiative funding infrastructure worldwide to boost trade and create partners.
It's really interesting how the U.S. perspective changed over time, isn't it? For years, the U.S. actually seemed to welcome China's growth. It meant cheaper goods for Americans, it boosted the global economy, seemed like a win-win. But then, as China got richer and, importantly, more powerful, that feeling shifted. You started hearing concerns in the U.S. Was China becoming a challenger? Was it going to try and rewrite the global rules?
That's the real crux of it, isn't it? China's rise is an incredible story of poverty reduction, a huge boost to global growth, amazing for its people and, frankly, the world. But that very success shifted the global power balance, creating these new, pretty significant tensions. China now isn't just happy being the world's factory. It clearly wants to lead in tech, in business, maybe even in shaping how the world works. It's a profound change.
So if China's rise set that stage, how did it specifically change the economic ties with the U.S.? Because that relationship seems incredibly tangled now. Dependence and fierce competition all mixed together. Connected rivals, you could say.
Exactly. The sheer amount of trade is, well, enormous. The U.S. buys vast quantities of stuff from China, electronics, clothes, furniture, you name it. China is the world's biggest exporter. But China also buys a lot from the U.S. Think food, soybeans, meat, but also high-tech things like computer chips, airplanes, advanced machinery. For a long time, like you said, this looked pretty positive overall.
Yeah, but then the mood soured. That trade deficit, the U.S. buying way more from China than it sells, became a big political issue in America. People worried about job losses, factories closing down and moving to China for cheaper labor. That hit communities hard.
And that led to these accusations from the U.S. side about what they called unfair trade practices. Things like China keeping its currency value low to make its products cheaper. Massive government support for Chinese companies, making it tough for U.S. firms to compete on a level playing field. And maybe the biggest one, complaints about technology theft. American companies saying their intellectual property was being taken, sometimes even forced transfers, to help China's own industries catch up.
Right, and because of all that growing concern, the U.S. eventually took pretty drastic action. That kicked off the so-called trade war. The U.S. put tariffs, those extra taxes, on tons of Chinese goods to make them more expensive. And China, of course, hit back with tariffs on American goods. This wasn't just between them, though. It shook the whole global economy. Costs went up for everyone. Businesses had to rethink where they made things.
Yeah, what's fascinating here, despite all that friction, the trade war, the economies are still deeply linked. Think about Apple hugely reliant on Chinese factories, but then flip it around, lots of Chinese tech companies need American technology, those advanced chips and software. So it's this weird mix, right? Competition, but also cooperation, or at least interdependence, makes it very hard to just decouple.
And this economic fight isn't just about today's goods. It's really heating up over who's going to lead in the future industries. We're talking AI, green energy, space tech, advanced manufacturing. It's about shaping tomorrow's economy. Okay, so beyond the economy, technology itself feels like the absolute key battleground right now. Whoever wins this race seems poised to hold a huge advantage, shaping, well, almost everything.
Precisely. This tech rivalry isn't just intense, it feels almost existential for both sides. They're pouring unbelievable resources into core areas. You mentioned AI, then there's 5G networks, robotics, space exploration, green energy. These aren't just sectors, they're like the building blocks for the future of industry, defense, even just daily life. And both the US and China are absolutely determined to be number one.
Let's talk about AI, artificial intelligence. We mean machines that can kind of think, learn, make decisions like humans. It's already everywhere. Voice assistants, self-driving car tech, medical research, national security. The U.S. has historically been strong here, right? You've got the big tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, plus top universities, research labs. But China, wow, they've made AI a national priority. They have this goal to be the world leader by 2030, and they're backing it with billions in R&D. Plus, they have access to enormous amounts of data, which is crucial for training AI.
And then there's the 5G fight. This isn't just faster phones. 5G is the infrastructure for the next wave of tech-smart cities, the Internet of Things, truly autonomous vehicles. China's made huge progress here. Huawei became a global leader in 5G gear, building networks all over the world. But that triggered big security worries in the U.S. The fear is if China controls too much 5G infrastructure, could it be used for spying? So the U.S. pushed allies to limit Huawei while also trying to boost its own 5G development. It's a real infrastructure battle.
And the tech race even goes to space. Both countries clearly see space as vital for science, sure, but also business, national pride, and frankly, strategic advantage. The U.S. has NASA, plus companies like SpaceX pushing boundaries with missions to the moon, Mars, but China's catching up fast. They've had successful moon missions, they've built their own space station, they have Mars plans too. Space is definitely a new frontier for this competition.
And we can't forget green energy. As the world tries to tackle climate change, both the U.S. and China are investing heavily in solar, wind, electric vehicles, battery tech. China's actually become the biggest producer of solar panels and EVs, incredible scale. The U.S. is maybe focusing more on the next big innovation, the breakthrough technologies in clean energy.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. All these different tech races, AI, 5G, space, green energy, they all tie back to that fundamental question: who's going to lead the world this century? It's about shaping how we'll work, communicate, travel, stay healthy, even how we keep ourselves safe. The breakthroughs here will define the world you live in. All right, let's shift gears a bit. Beyond economy and tech, we need to talk about military power. It's obviously a huge factor in global safety and how countries deal with each other. Both the U.S. and China clearly understand that having a strong military is crucial for protecting their interests and projecting influence. That's why they're both spending enormous amounts.
Yeah, the contrast is pretty stark, though. The U.S. has had the world's most powerful military really since World War II. Biggest budget, most advanced gear, bases all over the globe. It's designed to operate anywhere. Think aircraft carriers, stealth jets, advanced submarines, missile defense. It's about global reach. China, on the other hand, has been modernizing its military incredibly rapidly over recent decades. The PLA, the People's Liberation Army, has new ships, planes, missiles. A lot of it seems designed specifically to counter U.S. power, especially closer to home, like in the South China Sea.
And you see this competition playing out in specific areas. That's about controlling trade routes, projecting power. The U.S. Navy has been dominant, but China's built hundreds of new ships, plus those artificial islands they built in the South China Sea, putting military bases on them. That's really raised tensions. In the air, both have powerful air forces. The U.S. has its advanced stealth fighters, bombers, drones. China's catching up with its own new fighters and unmanned systems. And both are developing hypersonic missiles incredibly fast, hard to stop.
Space is another key military area now. Satellites are crucial for communications, navigation, spying, essential for modern warfare. The U.S. even created the Space Force. China, meanwhile, has shown it can target satellites, which is obviously a worrying development. And then there's cyber warfare. That's critical. Both have sophisticated cyber capabilities for defense, but also for attack, disrupting power grids, communications, stealing secrets.
And alliances play a big role too, right? The U.S. has its long-standing alliances, Japan, South Korea, Australia, NATO, and Europe. That gives it a global network.
China doesn't have the same kind of formal military alliances, but it's definitely strengthening ties with countries in Asia, Africa, elsewhere, often linking it to trade and investment. But security cooperation is growing too.
So it's a really tricky balance. There's obviously a risk that some small incident, maybe in the South China Sea or around Taiwan where forces are close, could escalate dangerously.
Exactly. That's the big worry. But on the other hand, having such powerful militaries might also encourage caution. Neither side wants a major war, so maybe it pushes them towards diplomacy, towards managing their differences carefully through dialogue. The future really depends on that.
Let's widen the lens again. Beyond the hard power of military and economics, there's this other competition going on over ideas, culture, values. Some call it the battle for hearts and minds.
Yeah.
And it's a really significant, sometimes overlooked, part of the rivalry.
Definitely. The U.S. has historically wielded immense influence through what's called soft power. You know, American movies, music, tech brands, fashion, they're popular everywhere. But beyond that, the U.S. actively promotes values like democracy, human rights, free speech, the rule of law. It does this through international groups, foreign aid, education programs, trying to project itself as a reliable friend, a partner.
China, though, is pushing its own narrative, offering a kind of alternative model. The message is often about countries choosing their own path, without outside interference, especially on internal politics. Their strategy leans heavily on economic ties, big loans, investments, building infrastructure, particularly in Africa, Asia, Latin America. That Belt and Road Initiative is key here, connecting countries to China's economy.
If you compare their partnerships, the U.S. works really closely with traditional allies in Europe and Asia, supports institutions like the UN, NATO, the World Bank, pushing for cooperation on global problems, providing aid. China often focuses on building new friendships, emphasizing economic development and respecting national sovereignty, meaning not getting involved in domestic issues. And that approach is quite appealing to many developing nations looking for infrastructure and trade without, political conditions attached.
And education and media are big tools here, too. The U.S. brings in huge numbers of international students, runs cultural centers teaching English, uses its global media reach. China's doing similar things. Confucius Institutes teaching Chinese language and culture, offering scholarships. And it uses its own media outlets like CGTN to get its perspective out globally.
Fundamentally, though, this is a struggle over the rules of the game, the international rules and norms. The U.S. generally wants to protect the system set up after World War II based on rules, cooperation, shared values. China argues that system needs to change, to give more weight to developing countries, to reflect today's world, not the world of 1945. They want to adapt the rules.
So what does this all mean for other countries? And for you, listening? Well, this competition often puts other nations in a tough spot. They might want benefits from both sides, but get pressured to choose. Think about Africa. You might see the U.S. focusing on democracy support and healthcare, while China is building roads and ports. Leaders there often try to balance both. We see similar things in Latin America, Southeast Asia, the Middle East. It's a constant juggling act.
And culture definitely matters. American culture is widespread, but some see it as imposing. Chinese culture is less globally known, but its influence is growing, though sometimes paired with concerns about its political system. Ultimately, both need to show their vision for the future is positive, fair, and respects different ways of life.
Okay, let's talk about international organizations.
Yeah.
The UN, the World Trade Organization, the IMF, the World Bank. These are supposed to be where countries work together.
Yeah.
So influence here means shaping global decisions, right? Making this another key arena for the rivalry.
Absolutely. Historically, the U.S. was really the main architect of many of these bodies after World War II. The idea was to promote peace, stability, prosperity. The U.S. provided a lot of the funding, leadership, and pushed for certain values, democracy, free markets within these institutions.
China joined many of these groups much later. But as its economic power grew, its activity and influence inside them have surged. China now clearly sees these organizations as vital platforms. They want them to reflect the shifts in global power, giving developing nations, including China itself, a much bigger voice. So they're seeking leadership roles, pushing for changes.
And you see direct clashes. In the UN Security Council, China, as a permanent member, often has very different views from the U.S., leading to gridlock on important issues. At the World Trade Organization, huge disputes. The U.S. accuses China of breaking rules with subsidies, tech theft. China says the U.S. is just trying to hold back its development. These fights have really hampered the WTO, or look at the IMF and World Bank. The U.S. has traditionally had a lot of sway due to funding. So what did China do? It helped create new institutions, like the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIB, and the New Development Bank, offering alternative funding sources, particularly for developing countries.
So it's not just about who gets the top jobs in these organizations. It's a deeper fight about the ideas and values that should guide them. Is it the U.S. vision of rules, transparency, free markets, or China's emphasis on national sovereignty, state-led development, and non-interference? These are pretty different philosophies.
And this rivalry makes it harder to tackle big global problems. Think about the COVID-19 pandemic. Disagreements and blame between the U.S. and China definitely slowed down a coordinated global response at crucial times. Same with climate change. They're the two biggest emitters. They both need to act, but they also compete over who leads in green tech, which can complicate international agreements.
So the future of these global bodies really hangs in the balance. Can the U.S. and China find ways to work together within them, even while they compete? Or will the rivalry just deepen divisions and make these organizations less effective for everyone? Okay, let's bring this closer to home for you, our listener. This rivalry isn't just happening in faraway capitals or international meetings. It actually affects trade routes, job markets, the prices you pay for things every day. The ripples reach right into our daily lives.
That's a critical point. The most direct impact is often on trade. Tensions mean tariffs, export controls, companies scrambling to change where they get their supplies. That increases costs, creates uncertainty, slows down economic growth globally. Remember the trade war. It meant higher prices for everyday goods. Businesses losing sales, farmers and manufacturers really struggling.
Yeah, and those trade tensions made companies everywhere rethink their supply chains. Businesses that had spent years building complex global networks suddenly realized how risky that could be. So you see companies moving production out of China, maybe to Vietnam or Mexico, or even back to their home countries. It shows how fragile globalization can be when politics gets involved.
The competition also affects investment. Both the U.S. and China are huge sources of global capital, but the rivalry means more restrictions on investment, especially in sensitive tech sectors. There's tighter control over sharing technology, more scrutiny of deals. That can slow down innovation and the growth of new industries, especially in places that need that investment.
And don't forget currency markets. Tensions can make currencies jump around, which affects trade balances, borrowing costs. Other countries get caught in the crossfire.
It also shapes those future industries we talked about, green energy, AI, EVs, biotech. The race drives progress, which is good, but it could also split the world into different tech camps, forcing countries to choose sides, adopt different standards. That could get messy.
Which puts smaller countries in a really tough position. They want the benefits from both the U.S. and China trade, investment, tech. But they don't want to get stuck in the middle of a fight or forced to pick a side. Many are trying to stay neutral, juggle relationships. Others feel they have to lean one way or the other. For economic or security reasons, it's a difficult balancing act.
But it's important to say, amidst all these challenges, the competition does have some positive side effects too. The sheer intensity of the race, say in clean energy or advanced manufacturing, is pushing incredible innovation. It's driving huge investments in education, research, and development in both countries. That could ultimately mean better jobs, stronger economies, maybe even breakthroughs that benefit everyone.
Okay, let's focus on that innovation piece because it's arguably the most exciting, maybe even hopeful, part of this whole competition. It's not just about new gadgets. It's about defining progress, solving big problems, improving lives globally.
Right. The U.S. has this amazing history of innovation, right? The internet, smartphones, medical breakthroughs, space travel. It's got this powerful ecosystem, top universities, dynamic tech companies, research labs that attracts talent from all over the world.
But China has emerged as a massive innovation force, too. They've invested staggering amounts in R&D, built world-class labs, trained millions of scientists and engineers. And now China is genuinely leading in some critical areas. AI applications, 5G rollout, electric vehicles, renewable energy tech. Its companies are competing head-to-head globally.
And this race is about more than just products. It's about who sets the standards, the ethics, the values around powerful new technologies. How will AI be used? How will big data be managed? What about genetic engineering? The answers will affect privacy, security, freedom for all of us. So who leads in developing these techs also gets a big say in shaping those rules.
And it's become a real global hunt for talent. Both the U.S. and China are competing fiercely to attract the best students, scientists, entrepreneurs from around the world, which really highlights that innovation ultimately is a global endeavor. It connects people across borders.
This raises an important question for all of us then. Where is all this heading? What's the future of this competition? Will it lead to more cooperation maybe on the big global challenges? Or are we heading for deeper division, maybe even conflict?
There seem to be a few possible paths, right? And they look pretty different. One is maybe peaceful competition. The U.S. and China keep competing, sure, in tech and trade, but they stick to international rules, avoid dangerous clashes, and maybe they even cooperate on things like climate change or pandemics. Or you can see rising tensions, deeper divisions, mistrust grows, communication breaks down, the world splits into sort of U.S.-led and China-led camps. That would make solving global problems really hard. Then there's the scary one, accidental conflict. Neither side wants a war, but with military forces so close, say in the South China Sea or near Taiwan, a miscalculation, an accident could spiral out of control. Maybe there's a more hopeful path, new ways to cooperate, where both sides realize they have to work together on the big stuff, clean energy, health, keeping the world economy stable. That would require building trust, focusing on common goals. It's hard, but maybe possible.
And don't forget the role of other countries here. Many nations don't want to choose sides. They want stability. They can actually push both the U.S. and China towards dialogue, towards finding common ground. They can act as bridge builders, reminding everyone that global challenges need global solutions.
And you, our listener, you have a role too. By staying informed, learning about these complex issues, asking tough questions, citizens everywhere can encourage leaders to choose paths that lead towards peace, fairness, cooperation. The future of this rivalry isn't written yet. It really depends on the choices made now, tomorrow. Both the U.S. and China hold immense power, and they have a choice. Will their competition drive progress, or will it lead to division and danger? The whole world is watching, really, hoping for wisdom, respect, and a sense of shared responsibility.